Today's video is all about Hyperliquid, the blockchain to house all finance. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive and we're going to be looking at some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins. Looking for opportunity, and of course, the question is Hyperliquid an opportunity? Guys, today we're doing a bit of a deep dive. We're going to be looking into some of the fundamentals here, obviously taking a very retail perspective. At this point, we know that we're looking for mass adoption throughout this space. We're seeing a lot more retailers starting to look into the cryptocurrency space, and ultimately we got to make sure that we have all those fundamentals ready to go so that we can get bullish. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, you know, we're trying to get into all those little nooks and crannies about the project. We're hoping that the team has given us all the little details so that we can get bullish. And we're going to use the website as our main platform to navigate this project, obviously, beginning right here with a nice landing page, Hyperliquid, the blockchain to house all finance. Let's continue down. Let's begin. Let's see what's going on here. Crypto is fragmented today, but it doesn't need to be. For the first time, build projects, create value, and exchange assets on the same Hyperliquid platform performing chain. Very interesting, because it is an L1, which means that ultimately tokenization can happen here. Tokens, projects can build on this L1 and create tokens, contracts, smart contracts, and all the works, right? So it is definitely quite interesting from that perspective. Let's continue going down. We can see the flagship application, which is basically a decentralized exchange. We're going to talk about this term decentralized a little bit here today, because I think it's fair to define it. For those of us that have been in this space for a bit, we can have a bit of a definition based on comparing the past, the other decentralized protocols of the past can kind of give us an indication of where we are going and where we are now, ultimately. And when we compare our product offerings in comparison to the past, we are seeing an increase in decentralization in many protocols, particularly here in the DeFi space. So we're going to have to really define this, because, Hyperliquid is one of the first movers into this decentralized perpetual DEX narrative, offering derivatives in a decentralized platform. Now, this word decentralized needs to be really defined, because as you guys know, there's many ways to decentralize a project. Right? Tokenomics, meaning, decentralized wallet distribution. We're talking about governance, a DAO, how centralized is the authority within the organization. And there's many, the infrastructure itself, the tech stack, how is it distributed? Are the nodes distributed? Are the nodes, are there many nodes across the world in diverse locations, and so on and so forth. So there's many ways that to decentralize, and ideally we look for decentralization throughout all those categories. The problem is that all those categories, in most instances, it's very challenging to obtain 100% decentralization in all the categories. So if you've been in this space, you've seen the transition or the slow progression between being centralized-ish, and still be classified as a decentralized, and slowly transitioning and slowly building decentralized concepts, right? So we're definitely here with Hyperliquid spearheading some of the decentralized concepts, and we'll talk about that for sure today. So let's continue going down. Let's see what else we have. Oh, we have more little details here. Low fees. Okay, as an L1, they were able to achieve scalability, and again, the decentralization, aspect of their tech, of their infrastructure. In most cases, it's very difficult to have that scalability, and when you have a decentralized infrastructure. So this is one of the things that a lot of people are talking about regarding Hyperliquid, and which we're going to address very soon, obviously, as we look into some of the tech here, but ultimately the node concentration is a bit of an issue. Okay, that's basically what a lot of the talk about is that the node concentration, right? There's approximately 24 nodes, validators, and these validators are in a concentrated location, not distributed. They're under one umbrella or within one database, and that is a centralized choke point. However, there are other aspects of Hyperliquid that have become decentralized where no other projects have yet to really decentralize, right? And that is their settlement layer and their order book. Okay, this is important because as we continue going through this deep dive, you're going to start to ask yourself, what is the difference between a decentralized exchange, a decentralized perpetual exchange, and not only that, what is the difference between an exchange that the other perp dexes that are coming out, and how we can compare these as the tech evolves. So at the current moment, we're looking to decentralize authority on chain to put the settlement layer on chain, and in addition, the order book on chain. That is one of the biggest developments that Hyperliquid has brought to this space. And there are other little nuances, of course, that make Hyperliquid interesting, but there's no other main player that is offering this type of scenario. So we gotta, take it as it is. Hyperliquid's, validators are very concentrated and make it to a degree, very centralized because of that centralized choke point. But that is not their focus. Though, again, they're going to be focused on the scalability of things and the decentralization after they have achieved scalability. And we know that scalability is a lot easier when you have a centralized, infrastructure that's, under one roof and very controlled and easy to coordinate. The question is it harder after you scale to actually get decentralized? And one may argue yes, one may argue no, but I'm going to tell you this. There are many L1s that are very centralized from this perspective, and they begin this way. And slowly and steadily, they slowly decentralize. And as the ecosystem and as the tech stack, and all the infrastructure decentralize little by little, eventually they improve their decentralization. And on the spectrum, they become more and more decentralized. Could Hyperliquid achieve that? At the same time, maintain its other aspects that it checks for decentralization. So we're going to get into more of this a little bit more. We'll continue going on with this concept because I know there's a bit of criticism, and we can make comparisons to other projects, which I'm going to try not to do here on this deep dive because this deep dive is about Hyperliquid. But you can think of other L1s that have been criticized with the same thing, with the same idea of being very centralized from a validator perspective or a node perspective, and still the price action and the adoption and the ecosystem growth and everything is very, very bullish. So what we can conclude here is that a complete decentralized infrastructure is not necessary to become successful, based on what we've seen already, throughout this industry. Okay, so we're gonna just try to keep that very neutral and very, very objective. Transparent, fully on-chain order book. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Okay, so now we'll talk about the order book being transparent is nice. But at the same time, showing people's trades and showing, their liquidation levels has proven not to be the greatest thing. For the most part, we know James Wynn was hunted many, many times for his positions. And is that a really valid thing? Now, is that something where competition can come in and offer a software solution that, rectifies that issue and levels out the playing field from a trading perspective? The last thing you want is, a whale or someone that has an influential position to get hunted every time they touch the order book. That's a little bit of a problem. So, there are software solutions that could address this issue. Seamless, one-click trading, no wallet approvals to interrupt your flow. That's what we want to see, guys. I've been here in this space for a few cycles already. It's my third cycle, and ultimately we've seen, I've seen the DEX narrative flourish to the point that I can't imagine. I didn't imagine that we would get here so quick. In fact, look at where we are right now. A fairly decentralized approach to the order book and such, the settlement layer. Now we're seeing a little bit of Hyperliquid action getting involved with MetaMask. That's bullish. That's news that is just slowly coming out. That's bullish because ultimately Hyperliquid is an L1. So we have to understand that Hyperliquid is an L1. If a team wants to produce their own DeFi protocol or their own DeFi token project where they issue their own tokens, they can use Hyperliquid's boilerplate to create their own token that focuses on DeFi. You remember the landing page here. I'm just going to quickly scroll up to so you can see their product positioning, right? The blockchain to house all finance. They're wanting to, allow other projects to build and to release their own tokens and create their own projects on their blockchain and offer features that are dedicated towards this type of action, right? Trading and so on, and DeFi. So as we keep on going down, we have up to 40x leverage, okay, for those degens out there that are looking for some leverage. The Hyperliquid stack, perps and spot order books are two flagship applications built on the Hypercore. So we're going to take, when we talk about their ecosystem, we're going to take a different approach, because reality is there's not much really happening on their ecosystem, within their ecosystem. There's not many projects being built as we speak, but there are some in the pipeline. I just mentioned MetaMask. This is hot off the press that MetaMask might be integrating the Hyperliquid tech stack into their wallet, which means that you download a wallet and you can trade perps right onto the wallet. Bullish, guys. We've reached a whole other level, right? So is this the case? But they are just the tip of the iceberg. So you can see, spot, perps, and this and that. There's a lot of other things, lending and borrowing, that they got going on. They got the oracles. Can we navigate this? You can see you can do spot. The oracle aspect is there. They got their own oracle, a decentralized type of oracle. Again, we're not going to get too much into the tech, because this is not a tech review, right? We're looking at this as a crypto project. We're looking at all the major the details behind tokenomics, the team, and all that kind of stuff. But from a tech perspective, a software engineering perspective, this would be a totally different deep dive. And in addition to that, it would take 5 hours long to actually take this apart. So we're going to try to do our best to just understand the premise behind the tech and the overall value proposition. So high performance applications are built natively. These financial primitives, this is an important, the financial primitives that Hypercore provides allows the other projects to build on the L1 and inherit those primitives to be used as functionalities. Okay, that is a key aspect here. And this is very common in the software industry, where you you get on, you choose your language, and from there you choose your libraries, and your libraries offer you all kinds of primitives for you to build and create software off of, guys. For those developers that are out there, you guys know what I'm talking about, which supports familiar Ethereum tooling. And on top of that, being EVM compatible makes things a little bit more digestible and easy for this ecosystem growth to happen. So this is from this perspective, we got to be bullish. And then the question is, what primitives are they offering, right? There are some primitives right now that, within DeFi that could be really bullish for these applications or these projects to build off of, right? As an L1. So Hypercore exists as one unified state, unlocking applications that simultaneously require performance, liquidity, and programmability. Awesome stuff there. The foundation, Hyper BFT consensus, they have their own consensus. The state comprises all applications, so they're able to achieve their speed based on their innovative consensus mechanism and as such, the block time, users, all this kind of stuff. Great, volume that they've been having lately, guys. The success of Hyperliquid is just showing you the strength of a first mover advantage. That's all it really is. And guys, to be honest, I'm not a Hyperliquid, Moonboy type of guy, but at the end of the day, you got to give them what it is, the credit for where they came from, which is coming out of nowhere and providing something that we all need. Now, is there work still to be done? 100%. Could Hyperliquid become more decentralized from an infrastructure perspective? 1,000,000%. There's always improvement for that, but there's tons of projects out there that are cranking to the upside price-wise and adoption-wise and ecosystem growth-wise that still don't have their infrastructure decentralized. So we got to really keep it, clear here and put it into context and compare apples with apples type of thing, or else we will definitely be hesitant on adopting new technologies and judging them based on what they offer as a software solution. So Hyperliquid, what is it focusing on? This is what we really have to understand. It's not about decentralizing their infrastructure at the current moment. Maybe it's in the future, which we'll talk about in a second, because that's one of the limitations here. But right now, it's all about decentralizing the settlement, the order book and scaling that so that ultimately trading and perp trading can be done in a decentralized way with, okay, an infrastructure that has a bit of work to do. Okay, I understand the criticisms here, but we got to, call it out as it is. No investors, no paid market makers, no fees to any to company. Community first. Very interesting. Now, community first, okay. I understand that. We'll talk about the DAO and some of that stuff. It's great that they have a DAO. That's awesome to see a decentralized organization and to commitment to providing tons of liquidity to that DAO, meaning capital to the DAO to distribute, and that is in the full governance. And I appreciate that as well. That's very generous from that perspective, and decentralizing that authority over the tokenomics in general. That's pretty good. Now, anyone can own, govern, and one last thing, guys. There's some people that would say, well, their software is not open source, but guys, you're asking for Hyperliquid to give away their bread and butter of success. It's too early for that. Like right now, they want this thing to succeed. They need to keep their first mover advantage from a competitive approach. You cannot give away your software tech, your software, your secret sauce away so early. So for those individuals that are saying that that's a limitation, yes, it is, but it's not a limitation for the people that are holding right now that want this thing to succeed, given that it does have the first mover advantage. That's something to understand, and it's industry based. It's not just about crypto. Anyone can own, govern, and secure Hyperliquid through Hype, the network's native token. That's pretty good. So there is token utility, quite a bit of it, to be honest, because you can see a couple words here: govern and secure Hyperliquid through Hype. So secure Hyperliquid with stake and earn passive rewards over the staking and so on. So there's a little bit happening now. If you even want to deploy your own token on L1, yeah, you need a bit of Hype. And if you want to use it as margin for the trades that you're doing on Hype, yes, there's more token utility there. And there's a lot happening there. So there's a reason, there's a purpose behind having a token. And that's one thing that we have to appreciate. As I do so many deep dives, you guys know that I've done over, right now I'm at about 120 deep dives. I focus on all these little aspects, and now I have enough evidence based on all the deep dives that I've done that I can basically clarify whether a token is being utilized in its maximum potential. And I say that Hyperliquid definitely has a good approach, and not only that, has future capabilities to expand that utility in the future. So this looks pretty good. Just a little bit, they touched just a little bit. The white papers or the doc has a little bit more. I'm going to try not to go through the doc to too much detail, because the website did a great job kind of explaining quite a bit of it. And we conclude the website right here. The footer that has the typical links. We got X, go check them out. The Discord, they're there. Very helpful community. I was able to get some questions answered. And we got Telegram, if you're interested, to go get some notifications there about what's going on with the Hyperliquid team. So pretty good overall. The website's decent, and I do have some of these tabs already open for us so that we can get straight into it. So let's continue. Now, as far as their docs, like I mentioned, guys, I'm not going to go through this all through every single line. I'm just going to focus on the main details, like about Hyperliquid. We talked about that, what it is. It's an L1, right? They're focusing on DeFi, and particularly right now, the whole perp dex narrative is hinging upon Hyperliquid and using it as a benchmark for success. And obviously, as a software solution, they did their job to lead the way at the current moment. Large cap already, household name here in the crypto space, and generally, this is what we want to see, is the spearhead that it is to open up the industry to other, competitors, and see the competition in the capitalistic environment that we're in, to make this tech flourish. And we're seeing already so many other projects come out hot, trying to compete within this narrative. That is healthy for the industry, and more importantly, healthy for us as investors, because we can see the progression in this space, right? We're not going to be stuck only focusing on Hyperliquid now, because Hyperliquid has proven that there is a use case for this type of technology. So that's about it, guys. Go check it out. You can read this through. There's a little bit of detail, more, maybe less, who knows? But we went through the website. It does cover it quite a bit. Core contributors. So we're going to talk about the team just a little bit. Now, the team is like docs, but not really. Like I from my what I've seen and what I've been digging around, Jeff is the only one that is fairly docs. That is docs, right? He has videos out there. He interviews. He attends seminars and things like that, public speaking and all this, which is great. He's done a great job being a face for Hyperliquid, and he's very, very qualified individual to be doing that. Now, we know that a team is not just one person. And if we really want to feel strong or feel confident about a team, the core contributor is plural, right? You can see this plural. It's not just one person. Although he seems amazing, he has the, and we'll talk about him. We'll go on his LinkedIn and try to make sense of it, a sense of where he's coming from. But the general idea for me is if I want to be fully backing the team, I got to be able to see all the developers. I want to see where they're coming from, how large is the team, and so on and so forth, and their track record and history and so on. There's not much happening there. Okay, so that's about it. Now, he as an individual, as you can see, has tons of experience. So you can see, so it's led by Jeff and this individual who are classmates from Harvard, other members of the team. Like, again, this is what they claim. I wasn't able really to verify that. Caltech and MIT, and previously worked at many institutions that are highly regarded. So it's great, but not really fully doxed and not verifiable. So Jeff is the only one at the current moment. So let's move on. How to get started with the onboarding process. I'm not going to get into this, guys. How do you get access to it? That's a totally different concept. You can buy it on a centralized exchange, or you can buy it on Hyperliquid itself, and that's about it. That's all I really want to cover here. You're going to have to do your due diligence to figure out how you're going to be able to get your hands on some. The core. So let's talk about the tech a little bit here, because their ecosystem hinge upon this core, which means, okay, they're going to give us an overview here, but they have API servers for third-party applications to tap into their tech stack, right? So, Hypercore or the Hyperliquid team has created a group of functions, a library of functions where individuals, the other developers that want to use the Hyperliquid tech stack can use those functions to, tap into it. As plainly as I can describe it, to tap into the Hyperliquid environment. So the API servers, great stuff there. Development support, that's what we need. We see an Oracle aspect, having an Oracle based, it's a DEX, right? Perp DEX. We need the speed, we need the oracles, and they got that covered. Let's quickly click this. You can see the validators are responsible for publishing spot Oracle prices for each perp asset every 3 seconds. This is it. You can see, and they aggregate all this information from major exchanges: Binance, OKX, Bybit, Kraken, KuCoin, Gate. You get my point. So it's pretty much everywhere here, and that's the way the Oracle works. So again, I would highly recommend maybe get into a little bit of detail, just read right through this. API servers listen to updates from nodes and maintains the blockchain state locally. The API server serves information about the state and also forward users' transactions to the node. So this is how you could basically communicate to their tech stack, which is interesting. Oracles, we got staking capabilities. If you have liquidity and you want to stake it up and earn passive income, this is what you got, and you get rewarded for all of that. And there's some technical details. This is very typical crypto related content, right? So there's no real reason to make this a specifics for Hyperliquid. Multisig, this is a little bit different, okay? So Hypercore supports native multisig actions. This allows multiple private keys to control a single account for additional security. So what we have to understand here is that, let's say you went to a vault or some sort of, let's use that as an example, a vault that is used in a public way, right? Wouldn't it make sense for 3 people to have keys? But in order to open the vault, those 3 keys need to be present, or at least 2 of them need to be present. And in that case, you're decentralizing the authority over opening that vault and gaining access to whatever is in that vault. And the threat or the choke point of one person having that authority is now not removed completely, because there's still the capability that 2 of them can go rogue. But the reality is that you're improving that authority over that vault. It's just an improvement. It's not 100%. So this is one thing that a lot of people, especially in crypto, it's very black and white all the time. It's not decentralized completely, or it is decentralized completely, or this is not perfect. Obviously, nothing is perfect, guys. This is a developing industry with lots of opportunities for growth and improvement. This is why we speculate here in this industry. This industry is still full of speculation. So what we have to understand is their approach, right, to providing a multi-sig framework and a primitive is quite interesting. So unlike other chains, multi-sig is available as a built-in primitive, which means that if you are building on the L1 and creating a project on the L1 and creating a token, that team that generates that project on the L1 has access to functionalities that provide multi-sig capabilities, right? So this is what you kind of want to see. This is and making it easy as they have their own boilerplates that allow developers to use, and it allows them to create projects that have multi-sig capabilities. So again, built-in primitives on Hypercore as opposed to relying on smart contracts completely. So this is quite interesting stuff, right? So we got multi-sig capabilities. I would definitely look into that. Okay, so continue reading. They even talk about the malicious notes and many other things to consider, which is very responsible. And their SDKs, ready to go for you to, for Python and such, for you to get involved. Okay, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here because it gets very technical. But as an overview, this is what they're really focusing on, is the ability to have the multi-sig capabilities for projects. Okay, so interesting. Let's see if I can get back to where we were before, back to the Hypercore. What else? The bridge, typical, DeFi scenario, especially with the cross-chain capabilities of EVM compatibility, having bridges is necessary, so the liquidity can flow nice and easily across different chains and things like that. The clearhouse, the order book, again, we talked about the order book being on-chain, completely on-chain order book, something that not many projects has been able to complete with this much success. So kudos to the Hyperliquid's team from that regard. And then the vaults, something unique here. Vaults are a powerful and flexible primitive built into the Hypercore. So it basically, it literally is what it is. It's a vault, right? It's a holding cell. So strategies running on the vaults benefit from the same advanced features as the DEX, right? From liquidation to over leveraged accounts to high throughput. No more depositing into vaults that simply rebalance to tokens. So basically, anyone can deposit into a vault and earn their share of the profits of that vault. What does that vault do? So the vault is in control of the vault holder, in the sense that the vault holder, the owner of the vault, receives 10% of the total profit, right, of whatever happens to that vault, right? Note that the protocol vaults do not have any fees or profit share. Vaults can be managed by an individual trader or automated by a market maker. So that vault is almost like a pool of liquidity that can be used for the vault owner, and the vault owner has the ability to use that liquidity for whatever the case may be, implementing a strategy of sorts to make that vault profitable, and the profits get shared amongst the individuals that deposit into the vault. So all strategies come with their own risk, and users should carefully assess the risks and performance history of a vault before depositing. So for example, if I had a vault and I told everybody, I have a vault, and people deposited into my vault, they're assuming the risk that, Mike is going to be potentially trading with that capital and doing things with that capital, and they will be earning based on my performance, right? And what I do with that capital. Again, this is a whole new product offering, and something quite interesting here that I would dig deeper onto this concept, of course. And you got to understand that all projects, every business, let's call this a software business for a second, tries to come up with their own, core competency, value proposition, point of differentiation, whatever you want to call it. And, they're trying to be creative here with these vaults. It's interesting, no doubt. Okay, so it is a primitive on its own that they are offering. If it interests you, dig deeper. Dig deeper. That's all we can really do here. Sorry, that's onboarding. Let's go back here, and that's about it, guys. So overall, you can see this would be considered for me as their L1 ecosystem. What they really have here as individual parts that that are put together to make Hypercore, which is the Hyperliquid tech stack, essentially. What they got going on right now. Usually when we talk about ecosystem, we talk about projects that are being built on Hyperliquid, right? That's a thing. Now we saw Phantom Wallet, integrating into Hyperliquid as a project, right? As a potential, and we MetaMask potentially coming out hot very soon, type of thing. So we're gonna see this ecosystem growth as Hyperliquid grows and does its thing here, and again, maturity. Okay, and you got to admit, guys, the political clarity that we've got out of the United States is amazing for DeFi in general. And now that we've gotten the green light, we're seeing a lot of projects flex and spread their wings, which is great because now we can see this industry flourish within the decentralized way. A lot of the times becoming decentralized was not enough in this space, and just recently we've gotten many green lights. So good stuff there, and I hope to see the industry itself grow a little bit more in the future. So that's pretty good. As you can see within the vaults section, maybe I should have got into this. We have protocol vaults, votes for leaders, and votes for depositors. So as you can see, for leaders, vault leaders receive 10% of the profit share for managing the vault. Vaults can be a great way for a trader to share strategies with his or her community. As you can see, look into this, because this is just literally a pool of liquidity that can be grown, and then there's an individual that has full control of it and does their thing with it. And it could be anybody that is just basically a manager behind the vault. Okay, so let's move on from there. A hyper EVM, maybe this is something that we could consider here to talk about. The Hyperliquid blockchain features two key parts: the core and the Hyperliquid EVM. Okay, the Hyperliquid EVM is not a separate chain, but rather secured by the same Hyper BFT consensus as Hypercore. This lets the EVM interact directly with parts of the Hypercore, so there's no distinction per se. What can we do with EVM? It's just literally the ability to take advantage of EVM compatibility, right? Or the EVM framework, right? It just makes things less friction, right? Frictionless is better. And in this case, we know that the ERC20 standard is the standard pretty much. It's the most common, and having these standards, this tooling work together, and being able to use the tooling back and forth this way, just again less friction, better ecosystem growth, better development, adoption and support, and so on and so forth. So it's a good call, and we're seeing a lot of projects take on this approach, anyways. Okay. So again, more reading here, and they summarize and justify why with XYZ scenarios, and you can see that. So feel free to, again, get into it, start reading, do your work, do your homework, because it's definitely gonna empower you with the understanding. Hyperliquid improvements. Okay, so this is where we get into a bit of a discussion, because really they have different proposals. They're called Hyperliquid improvement proposals. Now, I'm going to tell you that DAOs generally have poor roadmaps. And again, over 120 deep dives that I've done already, one per week, every single week, haven't missed one. After a while, you start to really get a sense of what's what, and what a roadmap, what value does a roadmap bring to a organization, particularly one as such as Hyperliquid. Because if the DAO is present, it's the holders that generate the roadmap. But in many, in almost all cases, the roadmap is slow moving, meaning it doesn't get updated. We don't know where we're going. Proposals take time to actually get voted in and ironed out. And in addition to that, no one really takes ownership to say, hey, we're gonna do this, and this is when we're gonna do it, and when we're gonna try to achieve it by, at least within a quarterly target. It doesn't have to be the daily or the weekly target to say, on this day we're going to have that. That's not what we're talking about here. But generally speaking, investors or people that are speculating want an understanding of where they're going. And okay, we got HIP1, native token standard, right? Ultimately, is something that we should be bullish. And we're going to talk about this when I round it up. The hyper liquidity for HIP2 and HIP3, the builder deploy perpetual. So there's some good stuff here, but the reality is that when is this happening, right? And like, when's the target? But more importantly, I feel like their roadmap or their proposals are missing a key concept, which is what is the approach to decentralization and decentralizing their overall infrastructure. That's what I want to see here. Like, what is the goal? Because that's one of their biggest criticisms at the current moment, is their validators are all concentrated, all 24 of them. So what is their approach here? Or do they even have a plan to do that? So that's a bit of a problem, right? So really, this is not really the greatest roadmap, although you can go and dig in here and read exactly what they're trying to do and all of that. Gas costs for development and more details of integrating USDC. That's a huge one because again, stable coin integration for USDC is pretty good. Of course, hyper liquidity, sufficient permissionless token standard, and this type of thing for creating tokens. A standardization of creating tokens, fine builder. And we're going to talk about this. I'm going to summarize these quick at the end when we finish. Remember, I do those infographics. I'm going to have that all over the social, guys, for a quick summary. And I'm going to be using the summary towards the end of this video as just a wrap up so that we can get, a little bit of detail. So we'll have some timestamps in the description as well so that you can go straight to the summary for future, just to kind of get a refresher on everything. But you can see this is what they're really focusing on, these three proposals. For me, they're not highlighting the elephant in the room, which is decentralization of their infrastructure. Okay, so that's that. And there's other things, trading, different types, margin tiers, fees, funding. Again, you're starting to learn about what they offer and everything's about, the terminologies that are being used, the different validators. If you want to be a validator, running a validator, so GitHub repository, delegation program. There's a lot happening here if you want to, get involved here from that perspective. But you notice that there's nothing regarding tokenomics. That's a bit of an issue. Because when you talk about tokenomics, I don't see anything like, and if you look at their actual tokenomics per se, the metrics that they have here, you can see, okay, market cap, that's fine, but their circulating supply is 270 million, right? And then their max supply is 1 billion. So that means that we know or that there's some tokens that need to be issued. What's the plan? I don't see anything really clear here where it should be in the Hyperliquid docs. So they're not doing the greatest job giving that transparency about what's the plan about, getting those tokens out in circulation. So let's get right into that, because the rest of this, to be honest, is like historical data, risks. Obviously, there's risks, guys. Go look into it, because obviously this space is full of risk and how to mitigate it, and Oracle manipulation risk. So at least they spearhead some of the limitations that you could have with their system, which is great. Almost like a disclosure, which is awesome. Fully disclosing some of the limitations is a great way to pass on the responsibility of individuals to do their due diligence in what they invest in. So that's good, and force you to educate yourself about it. So definitely do that. For developers, they got the API, Hyper EVM, nodes, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's see what they got here, because they have their Explorer. And one thing that when I go and look at an L1 Explorer, the first thing that I'm looking for is wallet distribution. I want to know where the wallets are at. And if I have to dig and dig and dig and it's not here, like, I shouldn't have to play, a private investigator to figure out all the wallets and where all the wallets are being held, where all the tokens are being held. I want to see top 10 wallets and how many tokens are in there. That's my most concern. And I'll tell you right now, the foundation, the DAO, probably has a huge portion. It does have a huge portion of them, which talk about tokenomics in a second. So there's something that needs a little bit of clarity here. Okay, transactions, that's awesome. Good stuff. You can see all the fast action happening here. But who cares? Because I want to know where the tokens are allocated. Which wallets are holding, and which wallets pose a threat to dilution over time, right? Because we do have a limited amount of circulation. Hyperliquid's fresh and new, coming out of the gates with lots of hype, which is great. But ultimately, if the token allocation is very concentrated, we got to be careful, right? That's the problem. So there's not much clarity here, unfortunately. So that's what we need on the scanner, an Explorer. We need the wallet distribution. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know where it is. I don't see here. I'm very used to Etherscan and many other Explorers, but this one right here, it seems to be in a hole. And there's definitely something of value of keeping your Explorers in a very similar layout than the most common Explorer, which is Etherscan. Why would you change the layout from a software development perspective? Why would you change the layout and the way it functions in comparison to one of the major players? Keep it similar enough that it's easy to explore and understand how to use. I don't know, guys. I don't see it here. That's a limitation for me in my book. Hyperstat, the Hyperliquid stats. This is cool. I'll give them this. This is nice. I was able to stumble on that. If you want to see what's going on, look at the volume. Amazing. Good stuff. Look at this open interest. Okay, lots of action there on leverage happening there. Total volume, lots of volume increasing over time. Hyperliquid's getting its action, guys. It is what it is, right? Look at this. Beautiful, beautiful. Everything's up and to the right. Liquidations, also liquidations. We traders net P&L. Look at this. P&L is coming down. What's going on? There's lots of data if you're interested, and this is great too from a transparency perspective. Data is key. That is king. That is valuable, and at least they give you some of it right here. Largest user deposits. I'm looking for wallets, guys. I'm still looking, guys. If you know of where I can find the wallet distribution on Hyperliquid, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe I'll do a quick update in the next couple of days or weeks if I can find one. Let's see what they got here on their socials real quick. And we'll talk about the team in a second. Actually, you know what? Maybe what we should do is just jump right into the team. And, oh, you know what? Maybe this is probably more important. I'm sorry, guys, for bouncing around here a little bit. But this is their last post with regards to tokenomics. Let me just push this over. By the way, they have a Medium page, as you can see. And they're not really keeping up to date, right? 2024, January 6th. So, it's almost a year now with no post. Now, if you go into their only issuance of tokenomics that I was able to find, and thankfully there was somebody on the Discord that pushed me in this direction. Again, November 28th, 2024. It's around the corner for their yearly, for the yearly anniversary of this post. Now, guys, a year old is too old here. Never mind crypto, but tech in general. That's old. This is ancient history, right, in this space. So a year old of information, this means this is abandoned. That's not cool, right? And especially now, recently, as we're seeing, Hyperliquid do well, why wouldn't they keep up with it, right? With giving us a little bit of that transparency. So you can see they came out hot in the TGA at a Genesis event, TGE. For Hype. It was November 29th. And since then, they have their emissions, the billion tokens following this distribution. So this is where they're at this current moment. 38%, 39% future emissions and community rewards. That's pretty good, right? So they got that going on. And in addition, they have 31% to the Genesis distribution. So those are already out there and all in distribution. I would love to know the wallet distribution of these tokens, right? 23% to current and future core contributors. So the core contributors that are here and the future have some token allocation. 6% to the foundation budget, and a few little crumbs to the community grants and the HIP too, what they got going on. So undistributed tokens will be moved to future emissions and community rewards, which is interesting because who governs these tokens? Tokens will be emitted over time, with 76% going to the community over time, no doubt. That's going to be totally in control of the DAO. Hypothetically, I'm assuming that, because again, there's not much documentation, and I would assume that's the case, right? And if it's not, that's a big red flag, but I'm assuming that's the case. Core contributors tokens will be locked for 1 year after Genesis, so we're right around the corner. And most vesting schedules will complete between 2027 and 2028. So the unlock or the cliff is going to start soon, and then we're going to see a slow emission, slow and steady for the next 3 years or so. Okay, so that's something that we got to, understand, that the risk of dilution is still there. I showed you the tokenomics, that only approximately 27% or so are in circulation. The rest of them still need to be emitted over time. And that means that even during bear markets, we are still going to see sell pressure, token dilution. So ultimately, what I'm going to conclude is the bear market could be a very bumpy ride for Hyperliquid. It's not that Hyperliquid's not good, or it's because it's a rug or anything negative. It's just the facts behind tokenomics. That's the way it works, guys. There's going to be tokens being emitted even when the market performs poorly. It's going to happen. And it shouldn't be a true reflection of Hyperliquid as a project. It's a reflection of their tokenomics of being a new project that is emitting tokens, like every other token that does that. Okay, so that's something to understand. And then, what happens in a bull run when we start again for next cycle? People are going to be like, oh, look how bad Hyperliquid performed during a bear market. It's trash. People sold. Da, 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 da. But they don't understand that's the nature of tokenomics of a new project, right? I've seen so many already from this cycle. And speaking of projects from the previous cycle that did poorly during a bear market, but they don't understand the implications of tokenomics and that type of thing. So here we are. We just have to understand that this is a fresh project that has a lot of tokens that still need to be unlocked here. Core contributors tokens, we talked about that. The Genesis distribution strictly excludes core contributors. There are no allocations per private investors, centralized exchanges, or market makers. Very interesting. So show me wallets. That's what I say. If you show me wallets and I have them clearly defined, then there's no reason to be concerned. Statements like this don't have any value without actual transparency. And for a year-old blog post, there's no value there, unfortunately. Okay, so let's move on. That's the only thing I was able to find. Now, from a social perspective, and we'll bounce her back and forth to, the team again, because we'll look at socials and from team members and what we got, because all we have is Jeff here at the current moment. But from a Hyperliquid perspective, they got a good amount of followers, 324,000 followers with lots of hype, no pun intended, but it is what it is. Hyperliquid has attracted a lot of buzz in the last little while. So the blockchain to house all finance, trade, build apps, and launch tokens on the same hyper-performant chain. And this is what we've been talking about already for about 45 minutes. And this is what they are offering. You can see they got tokens being listed. This is hot one, of course. This is the one that Avanti's one that has been buzzing about for especially over this weekend. Another one, Aster, literally a competitor. This is an interesting to see this here. By community request, the only reason why it's listed, you can no longer short Aster with up to 3. So now long or short Aster with up to 3x leverage. Beware of low liquidity, high volatility, increased liquidation risk. Just understand that Aster is coming out hot as a competitor. I'm not going to be talking about Aster right now, but if you do want me to do a deep dive just to highlight its comparisons to Hyperliquid, join the Discord and make that request, and we will vote on the next deep dive. Okay, guys, it's absolutely free, by the way. Let's keep on going down. Trader is now leverage and isolated margin only. Pretty good. That's good. We want isolated. That's safer. By community quest, we got Sky and USDC. We already talked about that integration. The foundation made a bit of a statement here for proposals and all this. USDH ticker. This is another stable coin that is coming in very slowly. We're seeing a lot of stable coin action on Hyperliquid, which is good as far as a relationship scenario goes. The Linea Hyperliquid has converted regular perps, and Linea is also listed. ENA is also getting involved here quite a bit, integrating within their ecosystem. So that's Athena, stablecoin narrative player. So we're seeing a lot of that relationship between stablecoin narrative and Hyperliquid and all that kind of stuff. So pretty good custody on Hyperliquid. We have World Liberty Financial. So it seems like a lot of their announcements are based on getting things listed, which is good. We want the trading pairs. We want the degen trading pairs. And by them offering that, it means that it's a one-stop shop for all we need for trades, right? And being decentralized from a non-custodial perspective, then we're doing pretty good here altogether. Okay, so that's that. Their socials are doing pretty good. Again, I went on their Discord. It was pretty good, very helpful team, community and such. And if we go here to crypto rank, just a bit of those tokenomics, you can see that in a little while here we have the cliff ending. So it's going to happen any moment, and you can see the cliff actually ends November 29th, 2025. So in about 68 days we start to see the team them getting their core contributors their unlocked tokens. Now we also have untracked tokens. Just by the way, these are the future emissions, hyper foundations, and the community grants all coupled into one. That I am assuming that they're going to be controlled by the DAO. Okay. It should be, and if they're not, guys, we have a bit of an issue, but they should be. So pretty good overall. You can see the tokenomics are pretty clean, and again, just keep in mind, as we see tokens being delivered and distributed over time, we need to make sure that demand outperforms supply. Okay, now let's take a look at Jeff himself. I know I've been saying his name for the last little bit, but Jeff is one of the co-founders here at Hyperliquid. Unfortunately, he does not brand himself as such here on his LinkedIn page. I question why. Why not, embrace your role as the co-founder and lead and face of Hyperliquid? That for me is a little bit, of an issue, but it is what it is. Algorithm developer, Hudson River Trading. So he's got that experience, a year or so there. He's a software engineer intern at Google. So given the fact that he started, his mainstream career in 2024, he's got some experience behind him for sure. I'm wondering if there's any else. Maybe this page is unkept. It could be the case, which I would highly recommend that he, maybe keeps this up to date. And he's a Harvard grad, mathematics and computer science. He's definitely qualified, and it seems super qualified here. But again, more details better. And now I know it docks him even more, but at the end of the day, if he's already the face of the project, you might as well go all in and just really sell what you got here, and maybe get a few other co-founders and core developers, core team members up in here and get them docs, because it will definitely give us that sense of security. Okay, in my opinion, why not? You're already doing it. You're in DeFi here. DeFi equals money, and ultimately we want some security there. We got his X account building on pretty good L1, so that's pretty good. That's what he's saying here. Chameleon Jeff. I haven't heard back from many that market making has gone more competitive. So he's saying that's great. The deeper liquidity and so on and so forth. What I found interesting was this, right? July 9th. It's quite old considering. Where's his last post here? August 9th, July 9th. He's not even that active here, but okay, that's fine. But huge congrats to Phantom Team on their perps launch. So this did Phantom use their L1 to launch their own perp capabilities for their wallet. Now is MetaMask ready to follow? You get my point here, guys. It's not a bad scenario as an L1, and they offer that multi-sig opportunity for these teams to deploy their own projects, their own, coins and so on, their own tokens. So pretty cool, right? So that's pretty good. At least he's social. He's here, and such. All right, guys, we did pretty good here. We covered all the little details here. Let's do a quick summary, guys. Just a reminder, I'm going to be posting this infographic all over the socials, so if you can use it for your own reference in the future. I'll post it on the Discord and X and such. Let's take a look at what's going on here with the ecosystem. We see that, okay, they got a pretty solid ecosystem as an internal ecosystem. As an L1 for an external ecosystem, they're still starting off, so there's nothing there. But internally, they got a bridge, API servers, Clearhouse, Oracle, order books, staking, vaults, and multi-sig primitive, which is, a technology in itself that could add some great value for projects that are being built on the L1 itself. The utility, very typical, nothing crazy like innovative here, but still typical sometimes is good. Gas, staking, margin for trades, liquidity and vault integration, and rewards. Liquidity and vault integration is probably unique to them because they're the ones that have this ecosystem capability of having these vaults, as we talked about before. It's probably one of the more interesting utilities that they do have is the ability to use the token within the vaults, and the vaults themselves within their as a product offering within the ecosystem is quite interesting nonetheless. So 10 out of 10 for those, very clean and clear, but the roadmap needs a lot of work, right? Because this is great, no doubt. The HIP1, create and manage tokens directly in Hyperliquid. HIP2, users and bots manage liquidity on Hyperliquid. HIP3, devs can create and launch trading markets. Okay, that's great. This is something that we're seeing, trading markets being developed. Awesome. But what about the decentralization of their their overall tech stack, everything, their infrastructure. This is the biggest criticism. Address the elephant in the room. That's what I say, right? And does it need to be? Not really, because we've seen many protocols become very successful with that arrangement. It doesn't mean that they can't address it. Okay, so 7 out of 10 for that. Address the elephant in the room. Team, not completely doxed. Jeff, co-founder, is doxed and is the face of the project. He's very qualified, no doubt. Maybe he could be more qualified, but we don't know. I think his LinkedIn account should be up to date. And maybe more of team members should be doxed. And, I'm not saying everyone, but at least another one or two. Show us what talent you have and get us bullish from that perspective. And obviously, a lot of the times they say, you know what, I'll show you through product and doing and delivery. I get it, no doubt, but it's not forward thinking, right? So people like us, the retail market, can't speculate on what's possible from the team if we don't know the team itself. You got to understand, like, if we have an all-star team, I want to know so I can speculate on them and how well they're going to perform. It's almost like a sport if you think about it. Social, pretty good. A good amount of followers with good engagement. Telegram is announcement only, unfortunately, but that's okay because Telegram, to be honest, it probably does best as an announcement only anyway. But the Discord is active, that's where you can build better, stronger communities. So I appreciate that. And the Medium blog is not active; it seems abandoned. So it's not a good look. Blogs are a great way to educate individuals and to release information in a nice way. So I would say keep that up to date or just shut it down. Tokenomics, vague emission schedule. Again, nothing on the docs. I had to go to third-party applications and an outdated blog post, almost a year old. And again, it doesn't really give me any clarity with regards to wallet distribution. And coupled with the lack of clarity with the emissions and where we are with things, it kind of adds too much vagueness for tokenomics for me. 38.8 is reserved for future emissions, fine. And 23.8 core team cliff on November 29th, and which would equate to 0.09% daily for 3 years. That would be the pressure, the sell pressure that we would get even during a bear market. This is something that we have to understand. It doesn't matter for bull or bear market, but this applies more. It was going to be more pressure to the downside when we get bearish out here. Right now, we have a few more months, let's say, for bullishness. It's likely not to impact anything whatsoever, right? But when we get bearish, this is going to be more fuel for that bearishness, and it might see those bigger retracements. But that's normal. It's nothing really to hold against for Hyperliquid per se. Okay, so relationships, they got some USDC integration coming up. EtherFi staking infrastructure, so joining up with EtherFi. EtherFi is an interesting project, no doubt. Redstone is also a very interesting one. Integration of that Oracle, Redstone, top 3 Oracle right now. HyperStrategy staking and bonds, so staking bonds, that's interesting. HyperStrategy coming in there. Athena Labs, big, stablecoin narrative project. Ecosystem integration, bringing ENA to Hyperliquid might be a very, very lucrative scenario for both of them. Never mind. So 10 out of 10 for relationships altogether. And then exchanges, all we're missing is Coinbase. Will they ever get listed on Coinbase? Who knows? But ultimately, that's all we are waiting for from a trade perspective. If you're trading exchange listings, that's all you're really waiting for if it's going to happen. Again, Hyperliquid is like a competitor. So is it going to happen? I don't know. I don't know, guys, but it is what it is. Okay, so pretty good there overall. You can see that there's some areas of improvement. We know that the market cap is as such, and there's still a lot more tokens based on, the tokenomics here that need to be issued. And just a quick little verdict here to summarize some of my findings and maybe reiterate some of the important things that, we should keep in mind here. Obviously, it's an L1, part of the DeFi. It is a decentralized exchange and derivatives. Now, again, I'm just going to repeat this. Some may argue that it has centralized aspects of centralization. I will agree to that. However, it's not that clear cut. It's not that clean and clear. We got to be really real about, what it is trying to decentralize. And no other project right now was able to really spearhead that with the amount of success that Hyperliquid has, which is decentralizing their settlement layer and their order book completely on chain. Okay, now again, we're waiting for other infrastructure announcements to see what their plan is to decentralize their nodes, their validators. Okay, although the DAO has control over the emissions, 73% is still needs to enter circulation, which is quite a bit. Team unlocks begin soon. Like I mentioned, 0.09% percent daily emissions for the next 3 years. Okay, so this is something. Wallet distribution needs clarity. I couldn't find anything. I don't even know top 5 wallets, top 10 wallets. Who are they? Are they locked up? Are they, in a contract? Who do they belong to? Where are they at? I would like to know. It's not just about, taking their word for it, because it's not a faith-based system, but, they should have this transparency there, up to date, ready to go on their dock. Node concentration, again, we talked about that. I'm not going to repeat it anymore. And the fact that it ignores that node concentration is also a little bit of a problem, because they should be addressing the elephant in the room. Could Hyperliquid's market cap reach 60 million? Guys, of 60 million. Guys, it's look, as a project that has a lot of potential, the reality is it could easily 4x and hit a $200 market cap. Now, at the current moment, we see that their market cap is 18 billion. Could it reach 60 billion? Again, sorry guys for the typo. It's 60 billion that I wanted to put here. Could it reach? Could it 4x essentially? Why not? Okay, it could definitely 4x, which means that there is some growth there. It is the first mover advantage. Is there going to be competition trying to take a bit of its market cap as it grows and flourishes? It's possible. We're already seeing some, on Sui. We're seeing some on BNB. We're seeing some on Solana might be coming up with a hot one very soon. We know that Sonic might be coming up with one. There's a lot of projects right now, L1's coming up with their own perp dexes, and this is now the competitive force. How much liquidity or how much capital could Hyperliquid continue attracting? And it all depends on competition, and all depends on the total market cap of this space. I say if it gets at 4x, it did a good job, considering that it's already been cranking to the upside significantly. Price projection, maybe it hits about, $50 or something, and I put a 5 here. I apologize once again, a bit of a typo here, but there's definitely being at $54, what could we do? Maybe hit $200. That's the realities. Being at $50 right now, 4x, $200, that would be a safe play. Not being Moonboy, not being real about the scenario, definitely very possible. So I give it 8 out of 10, generally speaking, as you can see. Lots of opportunity here for upside still, but you got to admit, lately it has performed so well that its expectations, how much more could it actually attract, given that there's competition coming in hot. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about price action as well, so let's see what's going on here with the Hyperliquid chart. Ultimately, it's been taking a bit of a dip here, guys. So we're looking here at the 4-hour. Let's quickly go on the daily. As you can see, a bit of a dip. It did run up really nice, broke out of this rising wedge. Technically, it hasn't been able to sustain the move to the upside. Just be very, very careful with this, because getting in right now could mean that it's very likely to come down to levels of liquidity, which you can see the majority of the nodes of volume right here, between $48 and $33. So the reality is that maybe we do come down, cause a bit of an issue down here, a bit of whatever. As long as we don't break below here, I think we're still okay. We don't want to break below $30. Anything within this, what's really happening is a trendline liquidity has been being hunted. And technically speaking, based on a rising wedge like this, the base of the wedge is the target. Again, $30.50 or so. Very possible. And then we have the imbalance right here to also provide a bit of weakness, and still a little bit weak here and a little bit weak here and more weakness. And the next order block is all the way down here with the emotions, which are down here. How low do we go, guys? I say take it day by day. Being back into this range is not a good look, which means that first stop, bottom of the range. Dead cat bounce or something, breakdown, hunting liquidity. And this is where you're looking for opportunities to basically buy people's liquidations and their stop losses here, 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 and ultimately over here. And this is where we want to nestle the price action, get the inverse head and shoulders, cup and handle, Adam and Eve, bullish divergence, some sort of reversal right into this level so we can take full advantage of the dip. Buying the dip right now could be super lucrative, not just for Hyperliquid, but projects across this space. Guys, if I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.